I like sharp knives. I cannot lie. It's always nice for cutting. I'm going to be doing this segment for my kids. Both of them sent me an email. My son gave me a call and said, "Dad, can you show me how to make your Bami Goreng?" It is really simple, but I do it in stages. So I start with a Satay sauce, which is a peanut sauce with coconut milk, peanut butter, and chilies. And then I make the Bami, Bami Goreng is actually just spicy noodles. You can make Bami Goreng or Nasi Goreng with similar spices. Nasi is rice and Bami is noodles. So what I'm going to do is make this meal so my kids can follow along and make it themselves, and you as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the sauce. Okay, I use a can, and what we'll do is with this meal, because we're only serving 3 people, is use 1 can of coconut milk. When you get the coconut milk, make sure you shake it so all the ingredients loosen up in there. Nice thing about coconut milk, because it's really hard to take peanut butter and break it down. If you use regular milk, it doesn't work. But with coconut milk, what it does is it breaks it down nicely. Now, with satay sauce, usually when you see it, when it's around, it's usually a darker kind of brown color. But I'm going to add all the ingredients in here, and as I cook it, I'm going to be whisking it. The first ingredient I normally put in is the peanut butter. And in 1 can, I usually put 2 heaping tablespoons of organic, so I take about 2 teaspoons of peanut butter. I think I got some on me. About that. 2 heaping teaspoons. Okay, now this will, once it heats up, it'll cook into it. Okay, I'm just going to put this over here. And then what I do is I add a little brown sugar. I would say about that's about a level teaspoon. Okay. I put some salt in it. I would say to taste, because you want it sweet and salty. Now, to darken it, to make the darkness of the satay sauce, because you want it like a nice chocolatey brown, there's 2 things that you can use. I usually use a mushroom soy sauce because it's fairly dark and use very little because it's for coloring, or I use Ketjap Manis, which is a sweet soya sauce that is fairly common in the use of making this stuff. So, but what I'm going to do is, because I've added sweetener to it, I'm just going to use this mushroom soy sauce. It's very easy to get. It's great for stuff like this. So I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of it, and then I add the heat. Now there's 2 ways of adding heat. I make my own sambal badjak. Sambal badjak is a mixture of garlic, onions, chilies, sometimes hotter chilies, and stabilizer things like apple cider vinegar and some other things. But it's really hot and tasty, and it's a great condiment that I use in many different meals. But because it's not used a lot, I would probably use myself approximately heaping, a tablespoon of it. But what I'm going to do for this meal is I'm just going to add some chilies because it's usually a lot easier to get a hold of. Now remember, the more you use, the hotter it is. The harder it gets. So if you're a family with kids that you're trying to get used to some spice, I would just literally use a pinch of it like this and would just add it in there. So you got your most of your things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the stove, and what I do with it is I just keep whisking it, and I make my own satay sauce. So yeah. Okay, what I'm doing here is all the ingredients are in here, and I keep whisking it because I don't, especially when I'm using glass, I don't want to anything to burn, because the minute you get the taste of something that's burning, it gets pretty nasty. Now, because I like things spicy, I'm just going to add some of my own sambal in it. So you know, it was pretty thick, and now that it's heating up, it's getting a little bit thinner, and it's got a sort of a soft chocolatey brown look to it. I am going to add approximately a tablespoon of my own sambal, okay, which is fairly spicy. It's sort of a medium, but okay. And I just keep. Now what happens with the peanut butter and the coconut milk, you'll notice all of a sudden as it's heating up that it starts to kick. And what I mean by kicking is that it starts thickening. And when it just first starts thickening, I let it sit for a bit, and then I turn the heat off and I let it sit on the side. I also give it a bit of a taste to figure out, nah, it's not bad. It's how I like it in the salad and in the bami. Okay, as you can see, it's come to a boiling point. I don't even have it on the stove anymore, and it's still bubbling. It's gotten nice and thick, and as it cools down, it's a lot thicker than it was before. I mean, it still looks runny, but you can tell it's thick. And this is what we're going to be adding to the salad and to the Bami Goreng. Okay, what I'm doing right now is I'm getting the fixings ready for the salad. I've got some power blend here. It's got some Brussels sprouts, just some really good healthy stuff, and stuff that when something warm goes on it, it doesn't melt away like lettuce. So I'm going to put a bit of this in the bowl. Okay, don't need that much, especially if you're feeding, depending on how many people you need to feed. Okay, put that on there. I'm going to put some cucumber on it. Nice fresh cucumber. Cucumber is probably one of the main ingredients, because cucumber and peanut sauce is absolutely fantastic, right? So I put that around the edge there. Like that. And I'm going to put some mushrooms in there as well. And it's nice because once you grab a plate of what you need, you have a nice smattering of different materials. I love avocado. Not everybody does, but I'm going to be putting some of this in here as well. this is a perfect one. Still nice and got a little bit of grab to it. So my satay salad is coming along. Got some avocado in there. Just wash my hands a bit. And if you like tomato, you can add some tomato. Not everybody does. What I'm going to do is leave it somewhat green, and pardon me, I'm going to put some Brussels sprouts in the top here because they are perfect for this kind of salad. And I am going to cut some red pepper. Keep that circle going. Okay, so that's ending up being a nice salad, warm salad that the satay sauce will go on top of, and that's that. So later on when we reheat the satay, we'll pour it on there, and this will be our salad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the vegetables for the bami. It's a simple mix. I always, with my bami, have a base, and that's garlic and onion, and carrot and celery, and sometimes, you know, a chili if I want it really hot. But we're going to be eating a meal with people that can't handle the heat, so we're going to keep it fairly mild, so I'm not going to use any of this. And I like to, for the bami, I usually cube my onion. This would be like a full small onion, which I'm going to cube in small little pieces. I think for 3 people that's probably really quite enough, actually. So I can put this in some saran because that's fairly hearty. You don't want to overbear yourself with flavor. I'm going to use 3 or 4 pieces of garlic. Give a bit of a crush to get rid of the shell, which is hard to get off the best of times. With the garlic, it's the first thing I cook, and the kind of oil that I use is for this meal is peanut oil. It has a nice high temp that it will go at, and I use the garlic first because it infuses the oil with the flavor. Nice and thin cuts. I cut them lengthwise for this meal as opposed to diagonally or across, pardon me. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to start with. We'll put these over here. So 1 stock for this meal because we're only feeding like 3 people. I'm going to grate some carrot.
Like food.
Oh, it's all good. I mean, we could probably do some of that too later.
Okay, so that's my base. Okay, always for bami or nasi, carrot, celery, onion, and garlic. So what I'm going to do is start with the garlic. I'm going to use some peanut oil and turn her on. And what I'm going to do is put in my garlic first and sweat that, brown it a bit, and then I'll add my onion. I cut about 4 pieces of ginger that I'm going to add into there. I'll be putting some mushrooms in it, some bean sprouts. I was calling them Brussels sprouts earlier, I don't know why. So as you can see here, the flavor of the garlic, I usually try and get organic garlic so that there's a lot more flavor. So you see it browning, and as it browns, as you can see, it almost gets ready to turn, and that goes too dark. So right now it's like perfect for me to add the onion. And there's a bit of oil in there. Even if I'm using my bacon grease, I use quite a bit so that it can sweat nicely. I have it on a fairly high heat. I'm going to level it out a bit. And I'll let the onions sweat a bit. Throw in the ginger. Let that flavor get infused into the oil. And since I have most of my stuff chopped up, I'm going to put this on sort of a medium heat. I'm going to come back and cut up my mushrooms. Now, when you're cooking, and this comes from personal experience, don't go check your Facebook on your computer, because everything's going to end up burning. I've done this countless times on my own just to quickly check something. My brain goes into a different direction, and then I'm gone, and then my food gets burned out. So when you cook, stick with your food. Enjoy it, you know, give it that energy that makes everybody love what you're making. Okay, so this has got a nice caramelized kind of look to it. The ginger is setting into the cooking nicely. If videos had smell, you'd love it so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. Okay. So you can tell there's already a lot of vegetables in here. And I'm also going to cook in a handful of bean sprouts. So I'm just going to let that heat up a bit. And I mean, what you can do is before you use this, you can cook your meat, or after, it doesn't matter, because it's going to sit to the side after it's done anyway. I might add a little water just to inspire the cooking process. Okay, so at this point I just want to heat up the vegetables because they'll be added to the meat. Okay, so I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes. One thing I didn't add is the mixed veg. So I'm just going to grab some of that from the... So this will be all your vegetable that you'll be adding. I'm just going to put about two handfuls in there. maybe 3. Okay, so that's all the vegetable that'll be used in the meal. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to cut up the meat. What I do with the meat is I take it and technically what I do is I'll cube. Sometimes I tend to like freezing my meat and then cutting into chunks, but this is nice and fresh, which is always best, because there's some chefs, for instance, that will never use frozen meat. So this is nice and fresh. What I do is I cut it in strips to begin with, and I cube it in about 1/2 inch or less cubes. So I cut the strips first, and then I cube it. Remember, always wash your hands as you're going along. So these are about 1/2 inch square and a little bit smaller. Please, whatever you do, don't cut yourself. Okay, put that over there. Do it again over here. I actually cook these bones in with it because they give out flavor. As you can see, I use the cheapest cut of pork I can find, even with the fat pieces, and you'll see why, because it'll fry nicely in the oil, or what I'm going to use to cook these is bacon grease, and it'll give its own flavor because I add curry to it, and it tastes great. And, it's, for me, it's a bit of a process making bami. A lot of people, when I cook it and I come over and I make the meal, it seems like so fast. But I do have a method to my madness, and it even though I can do it in a half hour, for instance, I do have to pre-prep or organize things in my head to make it happen as fast as that I can. Of course, in a restaurant, you'd have a lot of the condiments and things like the satay sauce pre-prepared and ready to go. So there you go. That's the pork, and that's what I'm going to cook now. As you can see, these are nice and warmed up and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a bowl and let it sit for a while, and I will add that to the meat when the meat is cooked. Bacon grease here. I know that pork can cook on its own and its own fats, but I love to add, I would say, about a level tablespoon of bacon. And what that does, because it's got that nice cured flavor in, it makes it taste nice and yummy. So I'm going to put that in there with the old vegetable stuff. I'm not going to use an entire, and you can smell can you smell that bacon grease, Jada? Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more in there. I want to fry it nice and hot. And what I do flavoring wise is I add the curry in here. And I make sure that when I cook pork, that it's cooked thoroughly. And so when I move it right away, because it'll adhere to the pan, it's good that I'm using like a tea towel kind of surface. Okay, so I'm just going to cook that until it's cooked through. Okay, the noodles, there's two kind of noodles. There's the cheap and easy noodles that if I have a premix of Bami mix made, I'll just add them to these diamond noodles. They're awesome. They're only about $1.29, something like that. They're nice because they come in little chunks. It's great because you can use them for meals for your kids. But what we're going to use is an egg noodle. It's a broad egg noodle, easy to use, just really good, decent ingredients. Lately I've been using a lot of GMO-free and organic, but today we're just going to go economy style and use these broad. Okay, I'm frying this up. I turned it down a bit to shoot some other things, but as you can see, this is frying nicely. What I do with this is, believe it or not, I add a little bit of sweet chili sauce for chicken. It works just great with pork. I don't add a lot, just a little bit for flavoring, like that. It's a bit of a dash. And I either add a little bit of Ketjap Manis or just regular soya sauce. And regular soya sauce, because it's handy and convenient for people, I just put a little bit in there just to give it a bit of a salty texture. And then I cook it out, let it sweat in and let the water dissipate. And then I'm going to add a little bit of curry to it in a minute. But what I have done here with this bowl, this pot, so I've added water to it. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. There's a bit of salt to flavor the noodles, and a little bit of oil. There we go. What I'm going to do is let that come to a boil, and when it comes to a boil, I'm going to put a lid on it. I don't have what you would call an official lid. I'm just going to grab this plate for now. And as you can see, this is okay. Okay, so this is coming. There's still water in it, which is good, because what will happen is it'll get fairly dry. Is sort of what I want. Make sure that everything's cooked. You know things are cooked when the blood on the bone disappears, then you know that the pork is well cooked. And it's important because pork has things that may not be the healthiest for you, as my friend Aaron Avocado would let me know. Okay, now as this is cooking, I got some curry powder. This is fresh stuff. I used to make my own, but this is not bad. You need to take approximately a tablespoon, and I've got about a heaping tablespoon of it, and I put it in with my meat. So I want to flavor the meat, and the mixture of the meat with the satay sauce is really good. I'm going to have to turn this down a bit because it's just cooking too much. If you overheat your meat, you can always add a touch of water in it to let it cook in there. So as you can tell, that the meat is being nicely bathed with this curry, and what it'll do is once the water dissipates, again it'll have a nice pork with curry around it, and it will be very, very nice. So we're waiting for the water to dissipate, and when it does, just before it gloms onto the pan, we'll add the noodles. And what we'll do is we'll do a, sometimes you can just put the noodles down the way they are and then add, but I'm just going to make one big family pot, as it were. Now remember, as you can see, a lot of the stuff is sitting on the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit more water because it's basically done. I want to keep these spices, right? So if I add a little bit of water, what it does is it'll extract the spices, because what's cooking under there is the flavor, right? A lot of people don't realize that is what, if you're cooking and you don't, take the stuff that's in your pan, you're losing a lot of your flavor. Okay, there you go. So now it's all ready to go. I'm going to take it off the stove, and we're going to heat the noodles. We'll add those noodles, and we'll let, what I normally do is I let them cook, bring it to a boil, let them cook for a couple of minutes, and then just let it sit. I have boiling water with salt and oil in it, and I'm going to put it in. What I do normally is I stir it up right away so that the oil can mix in and it doesn't, you know, things don't stick together. There maybe should be a little bit more water. I just did it by eye, so hopefully it'll be okay. And I'm going to let that boil up. I'll be stirring it occasionally. You can see the oil in there as well. And when that's ready, I am going to add the vegetables to my meat, just so I can heat it up. The meat flavor, the curry flavor in the meat probably won't separate. I like to keep that in there. You can see the vegetables have softened up nicely, so I'm going to heat this up as I put the noodles in here to about a little bit higher than a medium heat. I'm also going to heat my satay sauce, which is going to go on the bami and the salad. So I'm going to put that on just above medium. So, and remember, there's a reason why there's a whisk in here. It burns very easily, very quickly, especially when you're using glass. I don't overdo the stirring because I like to keep the curry flavor in the pork. Keep stirring this up. It does not take long for the noodles to come to a boil. And remember, when you're cooking in glass, which is probably the healthiest alternative, you keep stirring and it won't burn.
You can do it now.
Okay, it's been about 5 minutes for the cooking of the noodles. They're nice, basically al dente right now. I'm going to mix them up a bit. Now remember, this is for your family. You can put them, this is the more slightly elegant way, but what we're going to do in the end is just mix it all up. Okay, you can put that on there. And I'm going to remove the bones of the matter. And then I'm going to put the vegetable mix on top. And this is the satay sauce. And what I'm first going to do is I'm going to put half of it, it's nice and hot, remember, you can see it steaming, on top of the salad. Very thin layer. Okay, and I'm taking the other half and I'm going to be putting it on to the bami. What I do a lot of the times is I take a little bit of paprika, I'll garnish the top of it, make it look nice, put some on the meal itself, a little touch of paprika. You can even use chili if you like. What I normally do with my meals, my bami, and I forgot this time, but is I'll fry up a bunch of eggs, scramble them, chop them up, and mix it in with it, because eggs taste really good with Bami Goreng as well. But for today, this is the meal. It's nice that, you know, the sauce is penetrated in the bottom. This is the salad. Looks great. Hopefully it'll taste great, and enjoy. I really want to say that I did this for my kids today, and what I'm going to do at the end of the video is, because I've been a filmmaker for a long time, I did a couple shots of them when they were kids, and I'm just going to leave those to let them know how much I love them.
So you're going to have some of your delicious strawberry milkshake made out of chicken fat. It's not made of real ice cream, it's made of chicken fat.
That's nice.
Do you know that?
Huh?
Did you know that?
No.
What's the worst face you can make?
Daddy,
Yeah?
you see it?
You look gross, Aubrey. No, monkey face.
So silly.
Oh. So tell me a story.
Once upon a time, there was a McDonald's. Oh, we got a tape! Ah! Look.